quite a big family, so I think it kind of was within me to want a child. In my student years, I kind of said, from 35, I start thinking about it or make that decision, yay or nay.
Okay.
And I've been with my partner, we've been working together for 12 something years, and but we were together now for 10 years. And I think kind of before I was turning 35, I really started to talk to him about, we should start thinking about that journey. And then we agreed that in 2020 we begin. We didn't know that COVID was happening, right. But 2020 was the year. By the time we, agreed on everything and we kind of came to this conclusion, yes, let's start this journey. I was 36 and turned 37, and I didn't realize that when I turned 37 I was already pregnant. So that was nice.
A lot of this conversation going on, when is the best time for women? When should we start thinking about it? And there are different, everyone has their own reason. I think it's an individual decision. Mm-hmm. For you, why did you decide at 35?
Kind of instinctively in my mind that I could see myself, that is the good age to do it. But when it became a reality, I wasn't necessarily, let's say, sort of spiritually, emotionally ready for it. So I knew that it had to be it's about a balance, and it was like an instinctive thing. I knew when the balance would be right, and that was a mix of was I happy at my job? Was I happy in my creative processes, in my life? Does my partnership feel really stable for this? So it was kind of a balancing act of many of these elements, and I don't know what happened. It was around 20, as we were creeping into 2020, things were just coming more and more together. So luckily, when we literally shook hands on it and we said, yeah, this is the time to do it, that really things were coming into place. And besides COVID, so many wonderful things were happening in 2020. Although we were technically, not protecting ourselves, I every month where it could have been a possibility, I said, no, not now. I don't feel it yet. It's not right. It's not right. And then as we were, I started this new job, and this job was really ticking all the boxes, and it was really filling my soul. And I think 3 months before I officially conceived him, I was really getting ready for it. I was like, yes, it's happening. I can feel it. All the elements are coming together. The partnership is fantastic. Like the home is becoming more the place I want to be. And I love my job, And then I really put sort of like my energy out there and said, now we can happen. And then actually it happened. But I didn't know until I took the test. But yeah, kind of in hindsight, I was seeing an acupuncturist regularly at that point, probably coming up to 2 years. So I was doing that. She helped to regulate my cycle. I was using an app more, again, just to kind of keep track of things, because I was curious myself. When we were, having sex and the kind of condition of my period, also the ovulation mucus, that would come. There's all these different.
Oh, wow.
Okay. When you ovulate, your discharge, the fluid that's kind of coming, that's cleaning your vagina all the time. There's like different stages through your cycle, and you can tell. It's not for not everyone might have this, but this is something I paid close attention to, that when you're ovulating, you actually have, it's literally like egg white. Wow. Like this mucus that comes out. It's like very stretchy.
The color is different. Okay.
Yeah, it's like clear, stretchy, and that's usually a sign that you've ovulated. Okay. And that you can...
That it's the right time for...
I think so, time, roughly, yeah. And it's just fascinating because as I was using the app, I could kind of track it, I can't tell you because of this mucus that I actually had an egg release. There's always a case that maybe you might not release an egg, but you might still have all the mucus. So I'm no scientist in this, but just sort of myself analyzing. And so I was kind of tracking this, and I started to pay attention. I could actually sometimes feel the ovulation, and also which side, because there's like a little cramp before.
Wow.
Anyway, things like that, and I just, without trying to be too dogmatic about it, I would seduce my partner and see if anything happened, kind of thing. I would say I then also, when I really was like, okay, now when I really felt everything was coming together and now we're going for it, I also was very religiously taking in all my supplements. I took like prenatal vitamins actually. And
anything specific?
No, I think just from Rossmann, the one that says Mama.
Oh, okay.
And just very, the like not so expensive ones. And just to really make sure I'm getting all my folic acid.
Yeah.
And for some reason, and again, I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but when I started this job, on the way to and back, there's this little store where they always had fresh spinach, and I almost every time I knew I was out, I would just buy this massive pack of spinach, and I was consuming that. And that was also something.
That's iron, right?
Yeah, I don't. Again, I can't say.
So your body wanted.
Yeah, it was like one of these things that I was really like wanting as when I was.
So your body was telling you that you.
I'm very connected. I would say I'm very connected with my body. I listen to her very closely, and just whatever she wants, really.
Wow.
And because my partner and I, because we're musicians, we also had quite a busy nightlife. So I really wanted to make sure at least my diet was always nourished as well.
Yeah.
So.
And did you actually feel like that acupuncture helped with regulating your cycle?
Yeah, 100%. Okay. My acupuncturist, she's top notch. She, in 2018 when I was in 2018 when I quit the full-time job, and then we moved into 2019. And I was then really on the search to rebalancing myself and my cycle. I went to see her, and I kid you not, like she basically said, okay, first phase is we're going to first elongate your cycle. So it went from a cycle happening almost every 23 days to suddenly I was getting my period every 35th day. And then I would tell her,
why?
Why she elongated it? Well, I don't know. She wanted to first extend it with acupuncture to really help my body recover. She also sent me eventually also some Chinese teas, which don't taste good at all. But she also says if you really feel like you're rejecting it, don't take it. So although it didn't taste nice, I was quite regular with it. And then eventually I was like, I don't want this anymore. And then I stopped. And it's because the body's also saying you don't need this anymore. Yeah. And yes. And then, so I don't know, that's what she was doing. And then eventually I was like, Utah, 35 days feels a bit too uncomfortable for me. And then she's like, oh, no problem. Now we're going to reduce it a little bit and bring it back. Anyway, by the point, I was really also ready to conceive. I had what is my perfect days, which is bleeding either on the 28th or the 29th day. Okay. And I had 2 months where it was really coming like the 2 months where it was on the 28th or 29th day. Mm-hmm. And then I was like, oh yeah, it's really happening. Yeah. And then, in the 3rd month when I actually was pregnant and I was waiting for my period because I wasn't sure if anything happened, and then it was like 35 days and I was thinking, oh my gosh, have I regressed? Yeah. I was like, oh my gosh. But then I thought maybe I should just do it, but my boobs were hurting but I also felt like as if I'm getting my period.
Yeah.
It's like,
it feels like that.
It feels like, and you're kind of like, oh, I'm regressing. No. And
then you took your pregnancy test, mm-hmm. and it's positive.
Yeah.
What were your thoughts? What did you do next?
It was a disaster.
Why?
I took the test. I went into Rossmann, the super drugstore. I don't know if I need to specify that because depending on your audience.
Drugstore.
Yeah. Went into the drugstore. You have like the wall of different pregnancy tests. And I'm like, oh, which one should I take? Oh, there's a digital one for €10. Let's just get the cheapest one. So I got like the €3 whatever one. And I only got one. Pack, I didn't think, like, I think also there's a part of me, like, it's strange. I wanted to be pregnant because if I wasn't, then I knew, damn it, I'm back to square one with my, cycle. Everything's going off course. But of course, I was also very nervous because of this, which is the truth, Anyway, so read the instruction. I'm home, read the instructions. It says, yeah, you have to wait like 3 to 5 minutes. I'm like, okay, yeah, sure, no problem. I pee on the thing, and it like 2 lines appears straight away. And I was like, well, this thing is broken. I mean, it says 3 to 5 minutes, and it just shows up. This can't be. And then so I was really, so it was a disaster. I saw my life flash before my eyes. I was thinking, this is way too soon. I thought it would take us a year, and it took us less. I tried calling my sister. She was working, so I called the next friend I knew who would be home and not working, and I just cried. I was full of fear, and she said, "But this is what you wanted," and I said, "Yeah, I know, but somehow it kind of, I don't know, it just
now it's a reality.
Now it's a reality, and it's frightening, and but then." Yeah, and then I tell my partner. I first was, trying not to text him the news. And when he came home, he was looking at me and he was like, "What's wrong? Something's up." And I was like, "Yeah, how we were joking about the test." And he says, "What test are you talking about?" I was like, "The pregnancy test." And he's like, "Oh, yeah." And I was like, "Yeah, well, it's positive." And then I start crying. And then he says, "Oh, yeah," and he kind of comes in, puts his tools down, and goes into the kitchen. And I was like walking behind him, like, "Well, is it okay? Like, what do you think?" He's like, "Yeah, it's, this is what we wanted. It's all good, yeah." And because I think part of me was expecting him to say, "Oh no, it's the..."
To freak out as well.
To freak out, that he would say, "It's the wrong timing," or something like this. Because I think basically all the thoughts not that I thought it was wrong timing, but just all the fears I think I was thinking he's going to have as well. But he was just super cool. And and then he turns around and he says, "High five, we can make children." So I was like, and I actually went to the gynecologist because usually you wait until 2 months, right? Not 2 months, 2 months, 8 weeks.
Oh, okay.
But they had me come in at 5 weeks, and he confirmed it, and then I was really happy. Yeah. I think at the moment we confirmed it at the doctor, and I could see the little embryo and the little flickering of his heart. I felt very special. Everything felt special, and and I enjoyed my pregnancy so much. I love being at work, and sometimes when at the point you can start feeling them in your tummy, like move around and stuff, like flickering. Sometimes I'd be at my computer and doing all this work, and then he would just do his little somersaults in my tummy, and I was like, "Yes, you're my best friend." And
so you didn't have any pregnancy symptoms?
No,
none. Wow. No morning sickness. No nausea.
No.
Wow.
I was. I think the only thing I would say I struggled with maybe in the first month a little bit, and then not first month, but the first trimester, and then the last trimester was a bit of the emotional, because especially in the first 12 weeks, there was a lot of this existential stuff going on in my head. In particular, a bit negative, I wasn't deserving of him, I wasn't deserving of being pregnant, so I was worried that I would lose him, that I would have a miscarriage. And so I think there was a lot of that. And then I think once I was reaching my 12, 13 weeks, and it was becoming more and more safe, and there's part of me in my heart that knew he's here to stay. He came here for a reason. I asked for him, and he said, "Well, you asked for me, so I'm here." And but then there's always that's the heart, but the brain is so also kind of crazy thinking of I don't know, other things, that, oh, maybe you'll get a miscarriage, or just thinking negative things. And I don't know if that was hormones that were playing a large role, And then second trimester was absolute bliss. I mean, physically all fine. I felt I had more strength. I felt I was more intelligent. It was so good that I started this job pregnant. Well, I mean, I got pregnant kind of some months into the job, but because I was making big decisions, you know, I was designing office spaces there and like project managing this design, everything. And I was flying. I was so high. I thought if the world could capture this sensation, there would be no war.
Wow.
Yeah, it's absolute bliss. Third trimester also all fine, but yeah, then the reality starts kicking in a bit more. Also because I then was preparing for maternity leave, and I was also so into the job, it was difficult to leave, and I was kind of leaving an identity behind in a way, or like the identity was put on hold. And then, you know, kind of emotionally, mentally preparing for the birth and the reality that life is really going to change, you know?
Yeah.
It's not just a fantasy. It's going to be a big reality. And yeah. Mm-hmm.
You said that you thought it's going to take a year for you to get pregnant. Mm-hmm. Why did you
I read statistics, you know, because I was mid-30s. Statistically can take up to 18 months for a couple to conceive. So I kind of was gauging on that. Yeah. In 2018, I took on a full-time job. It paid more and I wanted to have a bit more financial stability. And so in a way, I kind of chose money over happiness, let's be careful here, buddy. So yeah, what happened there, it wasn't necessarily a stressful job. It just it wasn't a good fit, but I ignored those feelings and those instincts and still tried. And what happened was I kind of went into depression. I kind of didn't realize I was in depression, but you know, when you look back, it's all very obvious how I felt. You know, my partner was really worried. What happened was, long story short, it changed my cycle. So somehow the mental health affected my hormones, and I was having my cycle, my menstruation every like 2.5 weeks. And what that did was it just depleted me. You know, I was very tired, and it was kind of like a vicious cycle. And actually I put on a little bit of weight. It kind of, I don't know if it was a mixture of like an office lifestyle, like sitting all the time and not doing as much movement, maybe a bit of hormone change. I also noticed like my hair was thinning, you know, really like kind of, I mean, you probably wouldn't have known, but I noticed changes. So what happened was when I went to the doctor, to the gynecologist, they would see some cysts, either on the left side or on the right side, on the ovaries, and they said that's usually quite normal because when you ovulate, usually cysts can form. So we just need to keep an eye out. But in order to do that, I went back like every 6 weeks to every 2 months, and the cysts were either still there or getting bigger. And then eventually on the left side, they spotted what they detected or thought was maybe some blood in the cysts. Yeah, Shatsi. You want to go? I might need to feed him a little bit.
Do you want to take a break? Or?
We can wait for two seconds. I'll just finish the thought before.
Okay, sure.
Because the exhaustion, you know, like I'll lose my train of thought easily. So then the doctor, it was never, let's say, diagnosed, but they suspected endometriosis, which of course made my world collapse, because when you start researching this topic, it's harrowing. It can really be awful for women. But funnily enough, I didn't have any of the symptoms described. It was just these cysts. So they then said that ideally I should get an operation, because if I wanted to get pregnant, this is something I needed to remove. And for me, I just thought the idea of someone cutting me open and checking this out, it was just, I don't know, it just was not. Get over here. Sorry. It was just not the, that was something I really didn't want to have to go through. But I kind of went along, and I was like, okay, I'll go to the hospital and get this checked out. Anyway, and at the time, now we are now in 2019. What I had started, so I had quit my job, my full-time job in 2018. I'd quit it. I went on a sabbatical. But I think that doesn't mean just because I was, starting this process of self-healing and it's like I needed to rediscover myself. It was like I had a little bit of like a life crisis, and I needed to reevaluate everything. And that's kind of also in that time, that's when they discover these cysts and everything. And then so when they said I have cysts, I was kind of getting, and they mentioned the word endometriosis, although it wasn't a diagnosis, it was a suspicion that it could be. But I'm a little bit of a catastrophist, so I of course think the worst. And then I start doing this research. I joined these Facebook groups for endometriosis survivors or whatever, like patients and all this. So here in Berlin, we were looking for a midwife, and it was difficult. She didn't come right away into our life. I said to so I first sent out my emails, and I kept getting rejection back. I mean, saying, thank you, Nina, for reaching out, but, I'm on holiday or I'm booked out, la, la, la.
Okay, so maybe we need to explain why we need a midwife, right, in Berlin, because I don't think you need it everywhere.
You don't have to have a midwife, actually. You don't.
When you say midwife, you don't mean someone who actually delivers the baby?
No. Yeah. The midwife is the postpartum care. Mm-hmm. So they come to check in on you and how you're healing and how the baby is doing. But leading up to the birth, you also go do some visits with them, and they're checking your vitals, but they do everything externally. They're not a gynecologist where they can go internally. So no machines other than the CTG for heart measuring. Yeah. Being pregnant for the first time, living in Berlin, trying to do what the Berliners do or what the Germans do, getting a midwife was one of these things to make sure you had a midwife. And kind of connecting with other mothers, they did say, especially if you're a first-time mom, I do recommend, because they will be a good guide and help you to understand what's going on if you're maybe struggling in the first few weeks of postpartum. So so I thought, okay, I need this midwife, but there's a little bit of a, let's say, midwife crisis in Berlin. So they're not, I don't know how to describe it. They're like the treasure at the end of the rainbow, like hopefully you find it kind of thing. So anyway, when I was receiving these rejection emails, I have to say emotionally, I couldn't really take it. I don't do well with rejection. So I said, you know what? I'm going to write to this Facebook group where there was like a community of midwives, give my address details, and I'm going to leave that there. And I trust that the universe will provide. In the meantime, we sought out a doula. Now, that's someone we paid out of pocket. A doula is someone who would be part of the birth, technically. But seeing that it was COVID times, and unless you were doing a home birth, if you were going to a hospital, the midwife most likely would not be allowed to partake. However, I felt in this process of being first time pregnant, everything, not really finding a midwife so far, that a doula would be a good option, and I went into my savings and I paid out of pocket for her. She came recommended from a friend and spoke English, which was great for my partner because he doesn't speak German. And actually, even for him, it was such a nice experience because it really empowered him. It gave him reassurance, also knowledge, because he also has questions, and it was something we could do together, because also during COVID, all of my scans and checkups I had to do alone.
Oh no.
So my partner couldn't come with, and I couldn't document the scans, or I don't know. The doctors weren't allowing any kind of data for me to collect, so I can share with my partner. Yeah. So in a way, my partner, of course, he was there for me, and he did go through the pregnancy with me. But when it came to being in a doctor's office and seeing the baby's, action on the ultrasounds, and unfortunately he didn't witness any of that. And I think we were, in a way, we accepted it because that's just the way the world was going at the time. But it's a little bit sad, I think, for him not to have seen like the beginning, middle, and ending to a certain extent. So yeah, the doula was really someone who was a very fantastic emotional support, also a fountain of knowledge, knew all the systems in Berlin, recommended hospitals, how lots of processes worked, things that I guess we could have Googled, but we kind of were happy to connect with a person on this. And also, so when you asked me, how do I prepare for the birth, this was part of my preparation. In case I was going to break out in contractions at home, then she would come and then spend time with me and work through with us until we would have to go to the hospital. Yeah. So that was my preparation. That was kind of about it. My partner and I, we treated the pregnancy and the planning for birth very relaxed. We didn't want to have any expectation. I wanted to, I'm someone who goes with the flow. So like even, they ask you if you're going to breastfeed, are you going to bottle feed, all these things. And I said, hey, like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to produce enough milk. If I won't, then I bottle feed, or maybe I do both. I don't know. I just kind of wanted to treat everything with the flow, no expectation, no planning actually, and just allow nature to take its course. As long as everything is fine and we're healthy, then allow it to happen how it should happen.